All
Hi.
right. Hey there. Ready to kick things off? Let's dive right into it. What's the first piece you want to lay down for this podcast?
Okay, let's start with I'm Mark, and this is Alex. Go ahead and introduce yourself and do our disclaimer.
I'm Alex, your co host in All Things Spit. Just a reminder, we're here to spark thought, not tell you what to think. These are our opinions, so take them, leave them, but definitely think for yourself. Let's dive in.
Okay, we're going to do a movie review. I highly recommend that you see this movie. I think you're going to be like amazed. The writing in this movie is just incredible, I thought. Anyway, it's Nefarious Plot. It's a movie and a book. Go ahead into that, Alex.
Absolutely. Nefarious Plot is originally a book by Steve Deace, and the film adaptation sticks to its core. A chilling conversation between a psychiatrist and a death row inmate claiming to be possessed. It's all about confronting the nature of evil. So, let's unpack whether evil is real or just in our heads.
Okay, well, I would first of all say evil is real. God did not create it, we chose it. And that's the thing about free choice. So, going into this movie, it actually was more of a play type format, even though the movie obviously does not do that. You can see where this was actually written more in a play type environment.
Exactly. The dialogue driven approach really strips away distractions. It's almost like a mental chess match where each line forces you to confront bigger questions. It's the kind of format where the tension builds from the ideas, not just the action.
Okay, so go into some of the plot line. First of all, a disclaimer: if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie first. Actually, believe it or not, you can watch it for free out there. I'm not going to tell you where, just search it. You'll be able to easily find locations where you can actually watch it for free. That's how I watched it. So, uh, go into some of the plot dynamics of it.
All right, at its core, we've got a psychiatrist evaluating a death row inmate who claims he's a demon orchestrating humanity's downfall. The inmate manipulates, challenges, and tries to convince the psychiatrist of evil's reality. The tension escalates as the psychiatrist must decide, is this man insane or is something darker at play? By the end, we're left asking, what do we believe about the nature of evil and free will?
Okay, so it was written. Obviously, some of the hallmark of it is in the Gospels where Jesus talks to the demon named Legion, which meant there was many demonic forces within this one human body.
Right, and that parallel is intentional. The story echoes that idea of a human wrestling with something far beyond psychology. It brings that ancient concept of possession into a modern setting, making us question whether evil is something external or something we create. It's a provocative way to tie ancient narratives to today's moral dilemmas.
Okay, so the story basically starts out with the warden obviously wanting uh, a, for this person to be evaluated to be found sane so that he can proceed with the execution.
Exactly, that sets the tension. The psychiatrist comes in thinking it's a routine assessment. He's skeptical, logical, and wants to confirm it's just mental illness. But the inmate, Nefarious, starts revealing things he couldn't possibly know. And suddenly the psychiatrist, and we as viewers, are left wrestling with reality.
Right. Now let's go into some of this psychiatrist's background. He is obviously a psychiatrist and he's coming there to evaluate, but he's also a atheist.
Exactly, his atheism is key. He's grounded in science, logic, and he doesn't believe in anything supernatural. That's why the film's tension is so sharp. He's forced to confront whether his worldview is enough to explain what's happening. The more Nefarious reveals, the more cracks form in the psychiatrist's certainty. It's not just a battle of minds, but of beliefs.
Okay. So the psychiatrist, let's go into atheism. Honestly, anybody that claims to be an atheist, I really question that. I honestly believe it, it's basically impossible to be an atheist. I think you could be an agnostic very easily, but an atheist is basically saying they believe in nothing, which in essence, by believing in nothing, you're actually believing in something there. So go ahead and elaborate on that.
It's a fascinating angle. Atheism is often a conclusion based on a belief that there's no evidence for God or the supernatural. But as you say, it's still a belief about reality. What's interesting in the story is that the psychiatrist's confidence in a purely material worldview is tested when he faces something beyond his categories. The story pushes us to consider if evil or the supernatural can't be explained away, what does that mean for our assumptions?
Okay, let's go into the evil aspect. Um, Evil, go ahead and give the technical definition of it.
Evil, in a technical sense, is often defined as profound immorality or wickedness, something that intentionally causes harm, suffering, or destruction. Philosophers debate whether evil is a force, a moral judgment, or a lack of good. In the story, the inmate claims evil's very real, personal, and deliberate. It makes us ask, is evil just a human concept, or something more tangible?
Okay. Now, in the human perspective of evil, it is totally subjective of what you call evil. I've watched debates on this, and in essence, it becomes impossible to define because your morality is not necessarily my morality. So go ahead and elaborate on that.
Exactly, that's the moral relativism debate. Without a universal standard, people can define evil differently. What's evil to one may just be justified to another. The film challenges that by suggesting evil's not just a matter of opinion, but a reality that exists whether we accept it or not. It's provocative because it forces us to ask, is morality objective or something we create as we go?
So let's define it in a biblical standpoint, because the truth of the matter is a lot of people, whether they believe in God or don't believe in God, actually end up, when you look at their morality, it actually falls. I've watched people debate this and they think that they're smart about it, and the truth of the matter is their morality that they're defining usually ends up being a biblical morality. So let's go into the biblical morality into it, and go into Galatians, the fruits of the Spirit, and the opposite of that.
Sure, biblically, morality is anchored in God's nature. In Galatians, the fruit of the Spirit, like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, reflects a moral ideal. The opposite, often called the acts of the flesh, includes things like hatred, selfishness, and cruelty. In this view, evil isn't subjective, it's a departure from God's design. So even when people debate, they often unknowingly echo these principles because they align with universal ideas of good. The story, then, pokes at whether those universal ideas can stand alone, without a source.
Okay. Now in Galatians, it's chapter 5, if I believe right, isn't it? Just for someone if they want to reference it.
Yes, exactly. Galatians chapter 5. That's where you'll find both the fruit of the Spirit, like love, patience, and kindness, and the contrasting acts of the flesh. So if anyone wants to dive into that biblical moral framework, Galatians 5 is the go to. It's a good grounding for understanding how this story contrasts subjective morality with subjective belief.
Okay. So basically, the acting in the flesh would, in essence, be evil, and good would be the fruits of the Spirit. And if you really read those closely, it pretty much defines it. Where else can you find definition in a biblical sense?
You'll find plenty of anchors. The Ten Commandments in Exodus 20 lay out moral boundaries. Proverbs offers wisdom on righteous versus foolish living. In the New Testament, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5 to 7 deepens morality to heart level intent, like not just avoiding murder, but anger. Across Scripture, good aligns with love, justice, and selflessness, while evil is defined as actions that defy those principles.
Okay. And in a biblical standpoint, a lot of people get murder confused with killing someone. And killing someone, like you're trying to save someone's life, in essence, you kill somebody. Maybe even defending yourself is not the same as murder. Murder is an intention of acting upon someone for some malice reason. Go ahead and give your take on that more so.
That's right. Biblically, the distinction is intent. Murder is condemned because it's premeditated, unjust killing, rooted in malice or hatred. Killing in self defense, or in certain contexts like defending others, isn't treated the same because the motive isn't malicious. The moral core is the heart behind the act. And that's part of why stories like this one are so thought provoking. They make us examine intentions and what's beneath the surface.
Okay. So now he's sitting down with this individual, and that's on death row. And he's talking to him, and he's trying to make determinations of evil, or I mean, sane or insane. And what are some of the arguments the psychiatrist is looking at?
The psychiatrist initially looks for classic signs of delusion, breaks from reality, paranoia, or trauma. He expects a mental illness diagnosis. But as the inmate reveals personal details about the psychiatrist's life, things he couldn't possibly know, he's forced to consider that this isn't insanity. The inmate's coherence and insight push the psychiatrist to ask, could this be something more than psychology? That's when his worldview starts to unravel.
Okay. And now they break the for the majority of the conversation between the psychiatrist and this individual, it's a demonic force talking to him.
Exactly. The inmate, calling himself Nefarious, claims to be a demon using the man's body. He lays out his plot to undermine humanity. The unnerving part is how calm and matter of fact he is. No ranting, just a chilling confidence. The psychiatrist has to grapple with whether this is all an elaborate act, or if he's witnessing something truly beyond the natural.
So periodically, the person that was in control of the body appears.
Exactly, those moments are when the inmate, just the man, briefly surfaces, terrified, almost pleading. It's like a cry for help that challenges the psychiatrist to rethink everything. It's unsettling because it blurs the line. Are we dealing with mental health or genuine possession? It's that tension that makes the story so thought provoking.
So, and the demon wants the psychiatrist to declare himself sane, but the individual occupying the body wants the person to be declared insane so that he does not experience the death penalty. The demon wants to because he feels that his purpose with this human body has served its purpose. It has no more purpose, and he wants to, or it wants to move on.
Exactly, it's that twisted dynamic. The demon wants the execution because it sees it as a final triumph, an evil act that cements its influence. The man, though, clings to life and hopes to be found insane so he can live, even in confinement. This struggle forces the psychiatrist into an ethical dilemma. Is he dealing with a man's life? Or something far more sinister? It's that moral ambiguity that keeps us glued to the story.
Okay. Now, at a certain point, the psychiatrist actually believes that this individual is more than likely possessed.
Yes, the turning point comes when the psychiatrist witnesses something he can't rationalize. Whether it's knowledge the inmate couldn't have or a chilling event, his skepticism cracks. That moment forces him to consider that evil might be more than a concept. From there, it shifts from a clinical evaluation to a personal confrontation with what he believes about reality.
Right. And the demon doesn't care about the individual that it is occupying right now. The only thing he cares about, or it cares about at this time now, is he has used this individual, has no more purpose for him, and now his new purpose is actually this psychiatrist out there.
Exactly. The demon's ultimate goal isn't just the inmate, it's spreading destruction further. It subtly shifts focus to the psychiatrist, trying to manipulate him into hopelessness or complicity. The idea is that evil doesn't just stop, it looks for the next opportunity. That's what makes the ending so unsettling. The battle isn't just philosophical, it's personal.
Right. And the psychiatrist is clueless of how long this demonic force had been watching the psychiatrist, even from a young age.
Exactly. The demon claims it's been watching, waiting, nudging events long before this encounter. That revelation adds a chilling layer. It's not a random possession, but a calculated assault on this man's life. It emphasizes that the real battle is deeper, about purpose, belief, and whether the psychiatrist will let despair win.
Okay. So the warden just wants the demon to give a sanity, and he doesn't care. So the scene switches now to the psychiatrist being taken to that individual's jail cell to show the psychiatrist some information that he had not known up to this point.
Exactly. In that moment, the psychiatrist faces the stark evidence, the inmate's personal belongings or writings revealing a horrifying truth. It's a tipping point where he realizes this isn't just about one man, it's a broader battle of meaning, and the psychiatrist has to decide what he believes and how he'll act going forward.
And when the warden and the psychiatrist were talking, it was clear the demonic force had really messed with this psychiatrist's head. You could actually question even the point of his sanity in all of this, that he didn't know which way was what anymore. And you get the impression the psychiatrist was believing this person was in fact insane, because he doesn't actually believe in the demonic force. He can't answer things, but he actually believes this person is insane.
Yes, the psychiatrist, overwhelmed by the experience, ultimately chooses a rational path, declaring the inmate insane, perhaps to protect himself or hold on to his worldview. But the lingering uncertainty is the chilling part. The audience, and perhaps even the psychiatrist, is left questioning. Was it just insanity? Or did he brush up against real evil? It leaves us all pondering what we believe.
So you kind of missed a point. He actually, I believe, the movie depicts that the psychiatrist thought he was insane, but the jail cell tips him over that, and that was the intent of the warden. The warden was manipulating him to declare him insane. I mean, sane, even though both of them probably don't believe that he is actually sane.
That's a great clarification. The warden, driven by his own agenda, nudges the psychiatrist toward that declaration of sanity. After seeing the inmate's writings or evidence in the cell, the psychiatrist realizes the bigger picture. So while he publicly calls the inmate sane, it's with a haunting awareness that something deeper and darker has been at play, and he's been manipulated.
Right. The psychiatrist doesn't realize, I don't think, that he had been manipulated by the warden. But after being in the jail cell and seeing all this here uh, things that he saw there that pertain to the actual psychiatrist in the jail cell, it tipped him over the edge of how he was, what kind of verdict he was going to declare.
Exactly. That discovery was the final push. Once he saw personal, intimate details tied to him in the cell, he realized something was deeply wrong. It forced him to acknowledge that this wasn't mere madness. So even if the warden's manipulation wasn't fully clear to him, the weight of that revelation is what made him decide the inmate was sane, because he finally understood there was something real and chilling at play.
Now,
If you've got any other twists or questions you want to dive into, or if you're ready to wrap up that podcast outline, I'm right here. We can keep exploring or pivot to whatever's next.
oh, we're going to keep exploring. So, the psychiatrist now has a new question. How did he get all this information on him? Because basically his life story was in his little books.
Exactly, and that's the haunting question that lingers. How could the inmate possibly have known those intimate details? The psychiatrist is left questioning how far this influence goes. Was it supernatural insight, or has his life been watched and manipulated all along? It's this unresolved mystery that leaves him unsettled, and it's what makes the whole story stick with you.
Okay, so the demonic force said that he was going to commit three murders. At this point in time, two had been committed. And why do you think he said, when he declared him sane, even though the psychiatrist didn't believe that he was sane? Why? Because he thought that there was some other underlying, that this individual
In the end, the psychiatrist likely grasped that the inmate wasn't just clinically insane, but entangled in something far more sinister. By declaring him sane, he might have hoped to halt the demonic plan, thinking that if he played along with the demon's plot, he might prevent further harm. It's a desperate choice, but in that moment it was his way of trying to regain control in a situation where he felt powerless.
I think you got it right on the regaining control. He felt by murdering the psychiatrist, by murdering this individual and declaring him sane, he would be doing that. Even though he believed he was insane, he thought that this individual was a threat to him personally, and he wanted him killed so that the threat goes away.
Exactly, that's where it becomes so personal. The psychiatrist saw eliminating the inmate as a way to end the immediate danger, whether that danger was psychological or spiritual. Even if he wasn't fully sure what was real, he needed to regain some sense of power. In declaring the inmate sane, he took a step to end the immediate nightmare, even if it left him with haunting questions.
And at that point, it became murder, not because he declared him insane because society. It became murder in the respect that he actually believed this person was insane.
Exactly. In his heart, he believed the inmate wasn't fully in control, which should have meant a different outcome. By labeling him sane while believing otherwise, he crossed a moral line. That's why it haunts him. The act of self preservation became a betrayal of his own ethics, turning it into murder in his own eyes. That's the moral weight he'll carry.
Which the demonic force said that he was going to do.
Exactly. In a twisted way, the demon's prediction was fulfilled, not by some supernatural compulsion, but by manipulating the psychiatrist's fear and moral boundaries. That's the chilling part. It wasn't mystical force, but human choices nudged by evil. And that's why the story leaves you thinking long after it ends about how fragile our own moral lines can be.
Okay, now the story goes on, and we'll go back to that. But there's other things in there. People have no, unless you've seen this movie, have no idea of how many different areas that they cover. I'm going to go into one. it, so the demonic forces biblically it depicts that too. Of course they believe in Jesus Christ. Of course they believe in God. They know him to be real. They don't even question that. They go into the reason why they want to destroy humanity.
Absolutely. In the film, the demon makes it clear it doesn't doubt God. It simply hates humanity out of envy and spite. The idea is that humans are beloved by God, and demons, fallen beings, seek to corrupt or destroy what God loves. It's not disbelief, it's malevolence. And the psychiatrist hearing this is forced to confront that evil might not be a metaphor, but an active, intelligent force with a deliberate purpose.
Okay. And they go into how I think the movie depicts well, they go into how they feel that they can actually defeat God, even though they have won battles, but they've never won any main points and they've always lost, and they acknowledge that.
Exactly. The demon admits they can't defeat God directly, so their twisted strategy is to attack what God loves most: humanity. They believe by corrupting or destroying people, they strike at God's heart. It's a warped, futile rebellion, but their malice is fueled by spite. And that's what makes the story so unsettling. It's a glimpse into evil's hollow, destructive logic.
And now the movie depicts when these demons were created, but biblically, you can guess, but you really, you and I have done some deep dives on this, and we've never really been able to actually figure out in a biblical standpoint. I'm sure somewhere in the Bible, God will point out where they were created, but as of anything out there, it's a big question mark. But in the book, they depict it was before creation began.
Exactly. Biblically, there's no exact timestamp. It's often inferred that demons or fallen angels rebelled before humanity's creation, aligning with pride and rebellion against God. The movie uses that as a narrative tool, an ancient grudge driving evil. But in reality, the Bible leaves that timeline mysterious. What it does emphasize is that evil's origin lies in rebellion. The story uses that mystery to heighten the sense that evil is ancient, persistent, but ultimately still doomed.
Now, is there, what theories are out there that exist, and how do they define it biblically?
The main biblical theory is that demons are fallen angels. Revelation 12 is often cited, where a rebellion led by Satan results in fallen angels being cast down. Another view, less mainstream, is that demons are disembodied spirits of a pre Adamic race. But biblically, the fallen angel view is most consistent. Pride and rebellion against God led to their fall. Ultimately, the Bible focuses less on their origin and more on the moral choice of rebellion.
Okay, but Revelation 12 really doesn't define a timing date.
You're absolutely right. Revelation 12 uses symbolic imagery. It describes a war in heaven, but it's not anchored to earthly chronology. It's part of apocalyptic literature, more about the cosmic struggle than a specific timestamp. So any attempt to pinpoint a date is interpretation. The Bible's focus is more on the ongoing spiritual reality than a calendar.
Now, the one thing that Revelation 12 does pinpoint, it does pinpoint the birth of Christ.
Yes, that's correct. Revelation 12 symbolically depicts the birth of Christ. The woman giving birth is often understood as Israel, and the child as Jesus. The dragon, often interpreted as Satan, attempts to destroy the child. So while the chapter doesn't give us a timeline for the fall of demons, it does tie the imagery to Christ's incarnation.
Right. And we already did a podcast on this, so I'm not going to go into detail on it. Um, I, but I want to stick to the points of this. But it goes into a. This is what makes this movie, the writing in this here book movie so incredible, is it tries to go into the mindset of the demonic forces.
Exactly. The brilliance of the story is that it doesn't just show evil as a caricature, it dives into a chilling logic. It makes you think, what would evil say if it were brutally honest? It's not just jump scares, it's a philosophical confrontation. And that's what leaves an impact. It forces you to wrestle with what you believe about good, evil, and the choices we make.
Right. And one thing that is a correction, so I believe demonic forces know they will be defeated. And the reason why, biblically, in the Gospels, it talks about Jesus called the legion out of that individual, and they asked him if are they going to, or wait, no, I got that messed up. There's a different story where they got pulled out and they were asked, basically, is this the, you're going to give us punishment before our time, so to speak? And Jesus did not.
Yes, you're referring to the account where demons say, "Have you come to torment us before the appointed time?" They
Yeah.
know their end is set. In that sense, they're aware of their ultimate defeat. Yet they act in spite and rebellion, trying to cause as much destruction as they can, even knowing the clock is ticking. That fatalistic malice is what makes the dynamic so chilling.
Now, in the movie, they kind of depict that they actually believe that they think they can defeat God.
Exactly. Within the narrative, the demon boasts at its plans, almost like it's in denial of its eventual defeat. It's part of that character's dissection, prideful, manipulative. But as we know, biblically, that's just a lie evil tells itself. The tension in the story comes from watching that delusion play out, knowing in the end it's futile.
Okay. Now let's go on. The movie goes into the death penalty. Let's go. How realistic? I don't know a lot about electrocution. Um, eh, does that actually occur like it depicted in the movie?
While some US states historically used the electric chair, it's now extremely rare. Today, lethal injection is the primary method. A handful of states keep electrocution as an option, but it's seldom chosen.
No,
So,
no, no, no. I meant the actual electrocution. Okay, the individual where they had to hit him twice.
I see what you mean. In reality, executions by electrocution did sometimes fail on the first attempt, tragically. In those cases, a second jolt would be administered. It's horrific, but that was a grim reality of the method. Thankfully, this is now almost entirely a part of the past.
Okay, so that is a reality that the first time they hit him with electricity, usually that didn't end him.
In the past, yes, it did happen on occasion. The electric chair was not always consistently instant. While it was intended to be swift, there were instances where a second round was needed. It's a grim piece of history that's thankfully nearly obsolete. The film, in that sense, captured a disturbing reality of that era.
Right, and now lethal injection that you were talking about that they do nowadays, basically it causes a heart attack.
Yes, lethal injection typically involves a sequence of drugs, one to induce unconsciousness, another to cause paralysis, and a final one that stops the heart. The aim is to be quick and painless, though it's not without controversy. It's the primary method now because it's seen as more humane, though the ethical debate around capital punishment continues.
All right. And I don't want to go into that. So now the individual is killed, and basically, this psychiatrist earlier in the movie had invited him in and basically mocked him because he didn't come in. He was challenging him. And then a turn of events occur.
Exactly. After the execution, the psychiatrist who once mocked faith is shaken. He reconnects with that same man of faith, humbled. Those events push him to reconsider his worldview. The film leaves us with that note. Facing evil and mortality can break down arrogance. It's not about forcing belief, but acknowledging that sometimes we don't have all the answers, and that changes us.
So, and now the movie depicts that the psychiatrist is basically going to be like this individual, possessed by the individual, and taken over and controlled.
Right, the film leaves that unsettling implication that the psychiatrist, now vulnerable, might be the next target. It's a narrative device showing how evil tries to continue its work. It leaves us with that chilling sense of vigilance. If we don't confront evil, it tries to find its way in.
And they didn't depict it in the movie, but the individual that did eventually get electrocuted for the demonic forces acts, because the individual, they go back and forth on that. He clearly points out the individual inside the body, the original person in there, uh, points out that he didn't actually commit these acts, and and
Exactly, the inmate pleads that he was a victim of possession, that the evil wasn't truly him. But the tragedy is that the system can't see that nuance. Whether you believe in possession or not, the story highlights a moral paradox. The inmate is executed for actions he claims weren't his own. It leaves us pondering where accountability lies when evil is involved.
okay. So, and now as a Christian, I just want to make one simple point. It was something minor that, really not minor, but that I'd like to point out that on a biblical standpoint, is all this person would have had to do. He would have been executed either way, but is all he would have been had to done to gain salvation is he would have just said accepted Jesus Christ into his life, and the demonic forces would have been forced to flee.
Yes, from a Christian perspective, that's a central belief that sincere acceptance of Christ brings redemption and authority over evil. The inmate's tragedy is that he never took that step. The story, though fictional, highlights the Christian theme that no one is beyond redemption, if they choose it.
Now,
If
surprisingly, it doesn't fully say one way or the other. Um, the psychiatrist never comes to the point of accepting Jesus Christ, but somehow he's able to fight off the demonic forces.
Right, the film leaves it more ambiguous. Instead of a clear conversion, it shows a man shaken to his core. He fights off evil by facing his own fear and pride. It's less about a specific theological conclusion and more about his personal reckoning. In the end, it's that unresolved journey that leaves viewers thinking about what we all rely on when facing darkness.
And here's the deal. Even though as a Christian, I want everybody to gain salvation, accept Jesus Christ in their life, uh, it does depict reality that does not always occur.
You're right, reality is complex and people's journeys vary. The story reflects that too. Not everyone has a neat resolution or a dramatic conversion. Sometimes it's just about grappling with what we've seen, and that's part of the human condition.
So, but the one thing I do like is, even it was said, when Jesus had done the 40 days of fasting, and then the devil uh, um, challenged Jesus and tried to trick him, which was pretty ridiculous. Uh, but tried to trick him, and that Jesus was still tempted even after that fact, even though I don't know why they even tried. It was kind of pointless because it was not like Jesus was going to fall into any of their traps. He never did and never would. have fallen in any of their traps. Uh, at the end of the movie, they depict that as well, is that the demons still persisted.
Exactly. The film echoes that ongoing reality. Evil doesn't just vanish, and temptation can persist. Even when you stand firm once, life still presents challenges. The takeaway isn't a magical end, but that we must stay vigilant and grounded. The struggle between good and evil, after all, is depicted as ongoing, and that's what makes each choice matter.
Right. So that was basically the end of the movie. I thought the writing was just incredible. I haven't seen a movie that was that close to reality. Did it hit every point exactly right? Probably not. I don't think we can, is on a human standpoint, but we can come close. And I thought they depicted a lot of things very biblical and correctly.
It sounds like it really resonated with you. While no story is perfect, the fact that it engaged with deep questions and did it thoughtfully is what makes it stand out. Whether it's faith, morality, or human nature, a well told story sparks reflection. And that's exactly what you want for a Spit podcast.
Right. And here's another point. Even though it's more than likely an exaggeration on things, I do believe that this does occur in retrospect to how a lot of these things occur. I think a lot of schizophrenic is probably a demonic possession, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. We, on a psychiatrist level, will try to explain it in a non spiritual way.
It's understandable that people interpret these experiences differently, some spiritually, others through medical or psychological lenses. The key is compassion and care. Whether one views it as spiritual or medical, the goal is to help people heal. Conversations like this, though, open up room for empathy across different worldviews, and that's important.
Okay, I would disagree with you. I think without spiritual healing, there is no physical or mental healing. You got to have it. You can have, maybe they think they've been healed or whatever. The healing will never occur until you heal at a spiritual level.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective. I know for you, spiritual wholeness is foundational, and many do find that their deepest healing is spiritual. At the same time, others may walk different paths. What matters is that people find the care and approach that truly helps them. And conversations like this foster understanding, which is always a good thing.
Okay, I'll put a perspective out on you. You think in that they have a mental healing, but there's no spiritual healing in it. What good is gaining life in this short period of time on earth versus spiritual healing through forever?
I get where you're coming from. For you, eternity is the ultimate perspective, and I respect that. In the end, I think we can agree that everyone's seeking something meaningful. Whether it's spiritual healing that lasts forever, or finding peace and purpose in the present, the best we can do is walk alongside people, encourage them, and hope they find what truly fulfills them.
I guess we'll agree to disagree because um, fulfillment on this earth will not be true fulfillment. The only fulfillment that you can get is through Jesus Christ.
I respect that's how you see it. What's important is that you're grounded in what you believe, and that conviction guides you. In any conversation, even with differing views, I'm here to listen and understand where you're coming from.
All right, I believe we have come to an end of this. I actually enjoyed this podcast immensely. I highly recommend you go see the movie. Yes, we have definitely told you a lot of aspects of it. Even still, if you see this first and you want to watch the movie second, I think you're going to still be very intrigued. Highly recommend Christians watch it. It gives you a real perspective on a biblical standpoint on seeing the world maybe a little bit differently. And I'm Mark with Spit Podcasting. And Alex, go ahead and close this out and give a disclaimer.
Thanks, Mark. This is Alex wrapping up. Just a reminder, everyone, this podcast is meant for thoughtful discussion and exploration. We encourage you to reflect and come to your own conclusions. We're not giving professional or spiritual advice, just offering perspectives. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.